What is going on, everybody? So, I am back today to talk about a Shudder original film, and unfortunately, this year, Shudder has not provided the greatest catalog of original films. Typically, at the beginning of the year, it can be a rough start for them, but I always am willing to check out whatever films that they put out, and I was actually really excited to watch this movie because just by happenstance, recently on TikTok, I had someone recommend a film to me called Creep that I reviewed a while back that was a film from the early 2000s directed by Cristopher Smith. And this movie is also directed by Christopher Smith. And so I was excited to see a more modern horror film from him would look like that didn't feel like dated early 2000s. But yeah, I was excited to jump into this one. And the movie I'm going to be talking about today is Consecration. Consecration is directed by Christopher Smith. After the alleged suicide of her priest brother, Grace travels to the remote Scottish convent where he fell to his death. Distrusting the church's account, she uncovers murder, sacrilege, and a disturbing truth about herself. So, like I said, didn't really know much about this movie. I hadn't seen a trailer for it. I knew Jena Malone was in it, but aside from that, other than the director, because I just reviewed one of his films recently, I didn't know anything about this movie. And it's really not that good, unfortunately. It's very generic, and that is the word that I will use for majority of this review is generic. There are so many of these movies now, the like religious trauma films that like have sacrilegious imagery thrown throughout. Like we've seen it time and time again, and the ones that really succeed are the ones that kind of step out of the realm of what is normal and do something different. For instance, I think about Rose Glass's Saint Maud that was produced by A24 that came out in 2020. I think of a movie like Paul Verhoeven's Benedetta. Movies that like look at this subject matter but do something really unique and interesting with it that keeps you captivated from start to finish. And this movie did the exact opposite. It hit every single formulaic element of one of these films that you can imagine. And so getting into it a little bit, as the plot description says, we're introduced to Jena Malone's character. She finds out that her brother, who is in the priesthood, has committed suicide, and she decides to go out there and investigate it herself. While she's at the church, she meets Father Romero, played by Danny Houston, who, as soon as you see him, you'll know exactly who he is. He's been in a ton of things. I really like him as an actor. And then the Mother Superior that works there, who is absolutely creepy and gives off really strange vibes from the beginning of the movie. And as she is living there and trying to unveil what happened with her brother, strange things start happening every night. We get flashbacks to her childhood that give us a little bit of information into her life, all kind of building up to this insane third act climax. And unfortunately, like I said, this is so formulaic. I feel like as you're watching the movie, the director gives you no room to interpret anything that's going on. He's just going to jump back into their childhood and kind of like spoon feed you every bit of information as to what's occurring. And unfortunately, in the third act, when the twist is revealed, I guess, it doesn't really make all that much sense either as to what the film's implying earlier on, which is unfortunate. And I think this is a movie that is clearly trying to rely a lot more on atmosphere than on character, because there is like traumatic elements to Jena Malone and her brother's past that we jump back to. But aside from that, her character really isn't all that interesting, and neither is her brother's character. So if you kind of strip that away, you think all about atmosphere, right? You like creepy convent, really easy to create a really immersive and engaging and terrifying atmosphere. But this movie doesn't have that at all. It just kind of like it'll play off really blandly for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you'll hit a scene where like somebody does something shocking, and it's like, okay, you can't just do that and keep me invested. You have to do something to keep it really immersive throughout the entire hour and a half runtime. And I will say the cinematography in this film is really great. It looks really nice. The shots are framed really well. That was one of the few things that kept me engaged, was because of how nice the film looked. I assumed that it might have taken a different direction, but unfortunately it just kept staying really generic. Most of the performances in this are really just kind of stale. Everybody just seems a little bored with the material. There's nothing really powerful about any of the performances. When you're talking about, religious trauma or sacrilege, sacrilege or anything involving the church that has like a horror spin to it, there's a way to like make it a gut punch. Like I think of Morfydd Clark's performance in Saint Maud, and just how like timid her character starts, and then just as the film progresses, she just kind of gets crazier and crazier, and her belief system starts showing more and more through into her life, to where she's, you know, gone off the deep end by the end of the film. And that like build up in her performance is what makes that movie's payoff so amazing. Where in this, Jena Malone just kind of plays it straight through the entire runtime of the film, and it just doesn't do much to kind of sway you emotionally and keep you on the edge of your seat. And I don't know, this just felt like one of those movies where it's like, hey, these types of movies have been popular over the past couple years, even with something like The Nun and the Conjuring universe. Like, even though that movie wasn't well reviewed, it was like the highest grossing of any of the Conjuring films, so it's clear that like any of these religious affiliated horror films can make money and can grab people's attention, but you have to do something to make me want to continue to watch, and this is just super forgettable. Not the worst thing I've watched all year, but also not the best, and I'll probably never watch it again. So have you seen Consecration? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really formulaic, didn't do anything special, and I'll probably forget it in about a week. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, it helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.